My name is Autumn. I'm 34 years old, living in Austin, Texas. And I used to believe that if I just worked hard enough and sacrificed enough, I would be loved as an irreplaceable part of my family. But that night, while my heart stopped beating for 78 seconds on the operating table from internal bleeding, my parents were raising glasses to toast, my sister receiving a humanitarian award on national television. No one came to the hospital. Not a single message. They even posted smiling photos while I lay suspended between life and death. Have you ever felt like you weren't even a child in your own family? Like you were crumbling, and the people closest to you just kept celebrating as if you were invisible? If this story touches something inside you, leave a comment below. Tap like if you believe love should never have to be begged for. And don't forget to subscribe because what happened after I woke up changed my life completely. I woke up under the cold white lights, my chest heavy like someone had placed a stone on it, my throat raw, the steady beeping of the heart monitor by my ear, a cruel reminder that I was still alive. I moved slowly, trying to take in a breath, but the air scraped through my throat like ice. A nurse walked over to my bed, her name badge read, Rebecca, RN. "Welcome back," she whispered, as if trying not to disturb the fragile silence hanging around me. I opened my mouth. My voice shattered like glass. "My family, did they come?" Rebecca paused. Her eyes flickered with quiet pity. "We called every number on your emergency contact list. Left messages." She hesitated. No one came. I turned to face the wall. The answer didn't surprise me, but it still cut deep like a silent blade. I closed my eyes. The last thing I remembered before blacking out was the ambulance lights flashing through the window, the sharp pain tearing through my lower abdomen, cold sweat soaking my hairline. I remembered calling my mom, then my dad, voicemail. I called my sister Brielle. She answered just as I was struggling to breathe. "I'm super busy, Autumn. The gala starts in 2 hours. I'm dealing with a mess from the organizers." "Brielle," I whispered. "I'm headed to the hospital. They said it might have ruptured." "Oh my God, why today? You know I'm getting my award, don't you?" Her voice cracked. "I have to go. Can you take care of yourself, please?" I don't remember much after that, just that a nurse snatched the phone from my hand as my arm dropped. The last feeling was ice blooming in my chest, then nothing. Now I lay here, surrounded by machines and artificial light. One arm tethered to IV lines, oxygen monitor, blood pressure cuff, a body wrapped in wires. I felt like an object, a device being silently repaired in the night, with no one there to ask if it needed to be loved. Rebecca placed a cup of water on the bedside table. "If you need anything, just press the call button." I nodded faintly. She left, and I was alone in the cold room. Everything outside the window was still dark. A kind of darkness I realized wasn't just over the city, but had taken root inside me. I reached for my phone. The battery was at 12%. No missed calls, no texts, except for one Instagram notification. At Brielle Lowe tagged you in a post. I tapped it. My hands trembled as the photo appeared. My mother, in an emerald evening gown, her face glowing under golden lights. My father, in a crisp tuxedo, hand behind her like they were the picture-perfect couple. And Brielle, center stage, glittering in a metallic gown, smiling like she was living the ultimate American dream. The caption read, "Family is everything." Couldn't have had this amazing night without their unconditional support. Number blessed, number family, first number young humanitarian award. I dropped the phone on my chest and closed my eyes. It felt like a hole was opening in my chest, not from the incision, but from something far deeper. The pain of being truly, completely abandoned. A few hours later, a doctor walked in. His white coat read, Dr. Samuel Garrison. Autumn, I'm your surgeon. Do you remember what happened? I nodded slowly. Ruptured cyst. We had to perform an emergency surgery to stop the bleeding. You lost a significant amount of blood, and during the operation, your heart stopped for 78 seconds. I didn't react. I just looked at him like he was telling me someone else's story. We tried contacting your family. No one responded. Would you like us to try again? That won't be necessary, I whispered. He nodded, gave instructions about pain medication and diet, but I barely heard. All I could hear was the number 78. 1 minute and 18 seconds where I no longer existed and no one in my family noticed or cared. The next day at noon, my phone lit up. A message from Brielle. Heard you were in the hospital. Hope it's not serious. Oh, by the way, I'm organizing the after party. Can you transfer 3,000 to my old account? Just a temporary crunch. Not one question. Are you okay? Do you need anything? I set the phone down and stared at the ceiling. A small crack ran across like a dry lightning strike. I imagined if it collapsed now, would anyone come for me? Or would it just be another sweet status from Brielle? Live every moment with loved ones. You never know which one's the last. A voice outside. The door opened. Rebecca returned with a tray of meds and a gentle look. I have some good news, she said. You have a visitor. I sat up slowly. Who is it? Emery. Says she's your colleague. I exhaled softly. Emery. She walked in holding a hot coffee and a small bag. I know the coffee here sucks. And I figured you'd need your laptop soon. I looked at Emery, my nose stinging. Not from the coffee, not from the food, but because she was here, because someone showed up without being asked. She sat beside my bed. Autumn, I saw the news. They even interviewed your family after the ceremony. No one mentioned you. I pressed my lips together. They don't need me for show anymore. I have no PR value left. Emery placed a hand on my shoulder. Not everyone knows someone's worth, but I do. I said nothing. Just stared at the bandage on my stomach. Underneath it was a new scar and an old truth finally exposed. I had died. For 78 seconds. No one knew. No one came. Maybe something else was born in that moment, and it was growing quietly inside me. I didn't know where it would lead. I didn't know what waited beyond that hospital door, but I knew I wasn't the same. And from that moment forward, I started remembering everything, because I wouldn't miss a single detail. I woke up in the middle of the night to the IV machine beeping that the meds were nearly out. The room was still as quiet as when I fell asleep. Light from the hallway cast a pale strip across the white wall, and in that darkness, I reached for the phone on the bedside table. The screen lit up, and my heart sank slightly. No missed calls, no messages from Mom, not from Dad, not from Brielle, no one asking if I was still alive. There was only one notification. Brielle had just tagged me in a post on Instagram. I tapped it gently, and the image that appeared sent a chill through me. My younger sister, in a sparkling metallic gown, stood center stage at the awards gala, holding a crystal trophy etched with Young Humanitarian Award. On either side of her were my mother and father, both beaming as if nothing had ever disturbed their perfect lives. Mom wore an elegant black evening dress, her hair in a tight updo, crimson lips parted in a media-perfect smile. My father stood in his usual posture, hand placed lightly behind her back, tie neat, gaze lifted toward the camera with pride. The caption on the post read, "Family is everything." Couldn't have had this magical night without their unconditional love and support. So blessed. I let the phone fall onto my chest and tried to take a breath, but the pain in my ribs made it feel like even my lungs had been operated on. A shiver ran through me. I no longer knew what the word unconditional even meant in that post. I had nearly died alone in a cold, silent hospital, and they were toasting, laughing. Not one of them came. Not a single call to check in. But they still remembered to tag me online, like a decorative touch to their picture-perfect family portrait. I didn't cry. There were no tears left. Only an aching hollowness, like I'd been emptied out. My body, my mind, my heart, everything felt like it had been molded into something consumable, a product others could showcase with pride, then leave backstage to fade. My phone lit up again. An incoming call. Mom flashed across the screen. I hesitated for a second, then answered. Autumn, finally. You picked up, she said, her voice showing no sign of panic or urgency. I heard from Brielle that you were in the hospital. Are you okay? I pulled the phone slightly away from my ear, then slowly replied. I had a ruptured ovarian cyst, severe internal bleeding. My heart stopped for nearly a minute and a half. That gave me chills, she said, her tone still flat, almost scripted. But the doctor said you'll be all right, right? I came out of surgery just a few hours ago, I said. The doctor said if I'd arrived any later, I wouldn't have made it. There was a brief pause before she continued. Well, that's good. Actually, I'm calling because I need a small favor. I closed my eyes, saying nothing. Brielle just called me. You remember the post-awards celebration? The event planners added a surprise charge last minute, and the event budget's a little tight. Could you front us $5,000 just to get through this hiccup? I'll sort it out tomorrow. I opened my eyes and stared at the ceiling. The same crack I'd seen at midnight was still there, a jagged line slicing across the world I was desperately trying to hold together. You're calling me after I almost died, I said, voice breaking with each word. To ask for money? For Brielle's party? Don't put it like that, Autumn, she snapped lightly. You know I care about you, but we're in the middle of something important right now. I can't let everything fall apart over a minor financial issue. I bit my lip until I tasted blood. I'm not the only one holding this family together anymore, I said. Not anymore. She went quiet for a few seconds, then softened her voice. I know you're tired. When you're feeling better, we'll talk properly, okay? I trust you understand. I didn't reply. Just transfer the funds for now. The old account number still works. Thank you, sweetheart. She hung up before I could say anything else. The phone went dark. Outside the window, it was still night. I turned to look at the heart monitor. Still steady. Just me again, keeping myself alive. Not for anyone else. And I realized I had always been the one behind the camera in every family photo. The one who prepared, who kept things moving, who was never the center of anything. The person whose absence would go unnoticed as long as there was enough lighting and fake smiles to cover it up. But not this time. I had survived death, and I was beginning to see who the true lead was in the story of my life. Not Brielle, not Mom, not anyone who ever called me the support. Just me. Only me. That afternoon, after the doctor came to check my stitches, Emery returned to the hospital with a more serious look than usual. She entered the room holding a laptop, a paper bag of food placed neatly by the window, but her eyes never left the screen. I have something, and I need you to see it right now, Emery said quietly, closing the door behind her. I slowly sat up, a dull ache pulsing through my lower abdomen. Emery set the laptop on the meal tray by my bed and turned the screen toward me. An open document was already displayed, a medical emergency power of attorney form. This came from the hospital system, she said, her voice tight as a wire. Uploaded at 8:47 p.m. the night of your surgery. It has your electronic signature. I stared at the signature at the bottom. Autumn R. Low. Rounded and precise, exactly how I always signed official documents. But, I stammered, I was in surgery then. I was unconscious. Exactly, Emery nodded. Your hospital records confirm you were sedated at 8:14. Surgery began at 8:20. There's no way you could have signed anything at 8:47. I gripped the edge of the blanket. Who signed it? Emery paused, then switched to another tab. Hospital security footage. The image was grainy but clear enough. A tall, slender figure in a glittering metallic dress stood at the reception desk. This was at 8:30. Brielle showed up asking for an update on your condition. When the nurse denied her access because she had no legal rights, Brielle claimed she had a power of attorney. And then Emery flipped to the next screen. Less than 20 minutes later, the signed file was uploaded. I couldn't speak. My hands were shaking so badly I nearly knocked the water glass off the nightstand. She forged my signature? I whispered, as if someone else had said it for me. Emery nodded. And that's not even the worst part. I stared at her, waiting, half wanting to know more, half wanting to crawl out of my own skin. Do you know why Brielle did it? Emery asked, eyes filled with quiet sorrow. She didn't just want to know your condition. She requested full legal authority in case you didn't survive. I clenched my fists so tightly, my nails dug into my palms. Why? So the doctors wouldn't contact your next of kin directly if you died, Emery said, each word falling like acid on open skin. She wanted full control to handle everything quietly. No mess, no interruptions, nothing to disrupt Brielle's public image during the gala. It felt like someone had stabbed me straight in the chest. I leaned back against the bed, still staring at the screen, as if it were showing the moment my name had been erased from my own family. She did all that just to keep the party running? I asked, my voice barely alive. And to protect her public image, Emery said. If you died, the media would start asking questions. They'd dig around. But if Brielle took charge early, no one would find out that you passed while your sister was accepting a humanitarian award on live television. My arms went limp. I didn't have the strength to sit up anymore. I could hear the IV machine in the background, beeping steadily, like it was trying to force a heartbeat into me, because my real one was now just a hollow echo. Does anyone else know about this? I asked. The hospital hasn't flagged the forgery yet, Emery replied. I know because I handle legal records on the board. I stumbled upon the file while reviewing documents for the humanitarian report. Emery, I whispered, if you hadn't seen it, you would never know you were being used again, she said firmly. I wasn't going to say anything until you were ready, but after your mother called yesterday asking for money, I knew I couldn't stay quiet. I sat in silence for a long moment. A dull ache ran up my spine, but it wasn't from the surgical wound. You know what they'll say if I confront them, right? I said, letting out a bitter laugh. They'll say I'm paranoid, that I'm exaggerating, that I'm making drama because I'm jealous. Let them, Emery said. But you deserve to know and you deserve to have control over your own life. I looked into Emery's eyes. In that moment, I felt like I was stranded in a desert and had just found a drop of water. Not because she had all the answers, but because she didn't walk away. I nodded slowly. Send me the full file, every image from the cameras, every note you have. I'm ready whenever you are, Emery said. Just say the word. I turned to the window. The evening sun was casting its last golden streaks across the cold hospital floor. I had nearly bled out trying to keep myself alive, and the one person who fought for me wasn't family. It was a colleague, a friend. I looked back at Emery. I'm ready. The next morning, soft daylight filtered through the thin curtain, spilling a warm glow over a room still tinged with the smell of antiseptic. I woke up feeling different. Not tired, not angry, just quiet, like I'd finally awakened from a long dream and realized the scariest thing wasn't dying, but how long I'd lived without actually being myself. I pressed the call button. Rebecca walked in, smiling gently, holding the tray of morning meds. Do you need anything else? She asked while checking my incision. There's one thing, I said, my voice steadier than yesterday. I need to update my emergency contacts, remove all the old names. She paused briefly, then nodded. I'll bring the forms right away. When she left, I turned to Emery, who was sitting by the window, fingers still tapping lightly on her laptop. She looked up, meeting my eyes. I've started, I said. Started what? Cutting, I replied. Each rope that's been tying me down, every name, every dependency, every apology that never came, I'm letting them all go. Emery nodded without asking more. I reached for my phone and opened the email app. One by one, the subject lines popped up cold, mechanical. Account verification required. Bank appointment reminder. Medical status update. I started with the HR department. Subject. Emergency contact update. The body was brief and firm. Please remove Catherine Lowe, Richard Lowe, and Brielle Lowe from all medical and legal contact records. I will submit updated information within the week. Next was the hospital. I attached a scanned request from my attorney's office and asked for written confirmation. I removed each name like I was unlocking a chain that had bound me for over 30 years. No tears, no hesitation. After finishing the main emails, I turned to Emery. The joint account with my parents. Can you help me transfer everything into a private account? Already prepared, she said. Just waiting on your signature. I took the folder from her and signed every page without rereading. I trusted her. Not just because we were coworkers, but because she was the only one who showed up when it mattered, without asking for anything in return. About your grandmother's trust, Emery added carefully. It's jointly held by you and your mother, but if you want, I can initiate a transfer request for full control. I do, I said. We'll need a meeting with the attorney, she said. Schedule it as soon as possible. I had never felt this clear in my life. For years, I'd lived like I was repaying some invisible debt just for being born. I bent over backwards to please my mother, to support Brielle, to patch up my father's business failures. But they never really wanted me, they just needed someone to fill the gaps, to shoulder the weight they didn't want to carry. When Rebecca came back with the hospital forms, I didn't hesitate. I wrote down 2 new names, Emery and my attorney, Margaret. Alongside were contact addresses in case I ever went unconscious again. Not a single name from my bloodline remained. And I didn't feel sad. That afternoon, I got a text from an unknown number. I didn't need to open it to know. I glanced at the first line. Your father is very sick, can you come home? And immediately swiped left. Delete. I didn't care if it was true or another performance. I no longer had the energy to come running just to hold up a house they burned down long ago. Emery looked over from the other side of the table. You okay? More than ever, I said. You ever feel, when you finally put something heavy down, you realize just how long your back has been bent? Yes, Emery nodded. It feels like the first time you're really able to breathe. I smiled, like a quiet nod to the reflection I was finally ready to face. My breath was still steady, my heart still beat in my chest. But it was beating for me, not for anyone else. I wasn't hoping anyone would call. I'd already called my own name loud enough. That day, The sky was overcast, a thick gray sheet hanging over the low rooftops of the hospital complex. I was sitting on my bed, cradling my abdomen that still ached from surgery, when my phone buzzed softly beside me. An unknown number. I was about to let it ring out like the others from my family, but then the screen flashed a name I hadn't seen in forever. Gavin D. I hesitated a few seconds before sliding to answer. On the other end, a deep, slightly husky male voice came through. Autumn? Gavin? It's me. I know calling right now is abrupt, but there's something I think you should know. I've been hesitating for the past few days. I furrowed my brow, pressing the phone closer to my ear. What is it? I moved out of Brielle's apartment a few days ago. I didn't intend to go through her personal stuff, but there was an old phone with the memory card still inside. I opened it, thinking it might be mine, and I found a voice recording. The voice on it, it's your mother. My whole body froze, my fingers clenched the edge of the blanket. I didn't say anything, just listened to Gavin's shaky breaths on the other end. At first, I couldn't believe my ears. I sent the recording to your email. I don't know if you'll want to listen, but I think you have a right to know. I closed my eyes. Thank you, I whispered, my throat tight. Gavin paused. I'm sorry if this hurts you more. I really didn't mean to stir up the past. It's okay. I'm fine, I said, though I wasn't sure that was true anymore. We hung up. I opened my email. The audio file didn't have a title, just Voice Memo 2010. I plugged in my earbuds, my hands trembling as I hit play. First, the sound of wind rustling through a window. Then a voice, my mother's, gentle, slightly hoarse, as if she were speaking intimately with a close friend. I was never ready for Autumn, Sarah. She came at such a chaotic time. I'd just returned from a work trip when I found out I was pregnant, and she wasn't Richard's child. Suddenly, all I could hear was my own heartbeat. Steady, heavy. My mother's voice continued, disturbingly calm. Richard was about to file for divorce then, but we were running for the board presidency. An abortion would have ruined both our careers. So we decided to keep the baby. For image. I couldn't hear anything else for a few seconds. It was like the air had been sucked out of the room. I let the phone slip from my hand. One earbud dangled from the collar of my hospital gown. They kept me. For image. For a campaign. Not out of love. Not because I was a wanted part of their lives. I slowly leaned back against the wall, trying to keep my breathing steady. It didn't feel like a shock. It felt like confirmation, like the final piece of a puzzle I'd suspected for years. I had always wondered why I was so different from Brielle, not just in appearance, but in the way my mother looked at me. That look was always one of restrained tolerance, a cold kind of patience. I remembered a time back in third grade when I had a high fever, nearly 104 degrees, and was vomiting nonstop. But Mom still took Brielle to her dance competition because we can't just quit halfway. I stayed home alone, applying cold compresses and sipping water until I passed out on the kitchen floor. Back then I thought maybe she was just busy, that if I were tougher, she'd be proud. If I didn't complain, didn't ask, didn't stumble, maybe she'd open her heart. I was wrong. The door to my hospital room creaked open. Emery walked in with 2 cups of coffee. Her face fell when she saw mine, pale and blank. She set the cups down. Autumn? I didn't say anything. Just handed her the phone, the recording already queued up. Emery sat beside me, slipped on the earbuds, and listened in silence for over 2 minutes. When she took them off, her eyes were blurry with fury. Are you okay? I shook my head slightly. But I will be. What do you want to do? I looked out the window. It had started to drizzle. The raindrops formed long streaks down the fogged-up glass. I don't need their pity, I said slowly. I don't need their explanations. I just need one thing. Emery looked at me, waiting. I need to redefine my worth, not tied to any blood connection anymore. I took a deep breath. I'm going to live like I deserve to be born. I was sitting in Margaret's law office on a Tuesday morning when her screen pulled up the final report. Morning sunlight streamed through the tall window, casting a golden hue on the thick stacks of files across the table. The room was so quiet I could hear every keystroke from Margaret, every page turn like a truth whispering to the surface. Are you sure you want to see everything, Autumn? Margaret asked, eyes never leaving the monitor. I nodded, my voice raspy. I need to know how much they took, and for how long. Margaret turned the screen toward me. The numbers went on and on, month after month, year upon year. Money withdrawn steadily from the trust fund under my name, the one Grandpa had set up when I was still in high school to let you choose your future freely. At the bottom, the total showed $186,420.37 over 11 years. I stared at each transaction. Wire transfer, Richard Lowe. Loan disbursement, Catherine Lowe. Business registration fee, venture capital loan. My name was listed on every single one, as if I had signed, as if I had agreed, as if I had willingly handed over that money. But I stammered, my throat dry. You never signed, but your signature still shows up here, Margaret said, flipping to a printed stack of documents. It was forged, just like the medical power of attorney Brielle faked. This wasn't the first time. My hands trembled as I picked up the photocopy, comparing the neat curved signature at the bottom to the one I had practiced for months back in high school because I believed everything I signed should be deliberate, precise. Now, that same signature had been used to drain my future. Harlan and Wynn LLC, I murmured, spotting a familiar name. That's the export company my dad used to brag about. Said he got funding from California. There was no investment, Margaret replied, opening another document. It's a shell company, registered under your name, using your parents' home address, collateralized by your trust. They took out lines of credit, opened 2 business accounts under your identity, and ran it into the ground. I clenched my fists so tightly my nails pierced my palms. I remembered that time I was working 3 jobs: night shift accounting clerk, part-time teaching assistant, and freelance interpreter. Every dollar I earned went toward tuition, rent, and helping Mom pay for Grandma's hospital bills. I remembered sleeping on the dorm floor because I couldn't afford a bed. And all that time, they were draining the money that could have made my life bearable. What do we do first? I asked, trying to steady my voice. I've already filed a request to freeze all assets connected to your name. That includes 3 credit accounts, 2 business accounts, and a co-owned insurance policy. And the house? The house is under your father's name, but part of it was mortgaged using your trust account back in 2017. I'm preparing documents to remove your name from the lien. If they can't prove you signed the contract willingly, the bank has to recover from the other party. I nodded, feeling my heartbeat steady like a drum inside my chest. And if they resist? We'll sue, Margaret said firmly. I've already started preparing a civil lawsuit, including charges of trust, abuse, forged signatures, and financial fraud. With the evidence from bank statements and signature samples, I don't think they stand a chance. I took a deep breath, but the weight remained. Yes, I can sue. I can reclaim what was taken. But the one thing I can never get back are the years of my youth I traded for blind loyalty. Do you want to keep this confidential? Margaret asked quietly. From a media perspective, I don't care if they lose face. I replied. I just want them to have no control over my life anymore. I stood up, walked slowly to the large window overlooking the street below. People still walked, cars still lined up on the road as if nothing had changed. But for me, the world had turned onto a different path. Emery waited outside. When I came out, she put down her phone. You okay? I nodded. I did it. And now? I tightened my purse strap, voice low. Now it's their turn to explain to the law. As I stepped into the office elevator, the receptionist called softly over the radio, choosing her words carefully. Miss Autumn, there's someone named Brielle Lowe waiting in the lobby. She says she's your sister. I gripped my purse tighter. Tell her I'm in a meeting, no visitors. There was a pause. She says she won't leave without seeing you. She's crying. I pressed the button to stop the elevator at the reception floor. The doors opened and I saw Brielle sitting on a dark blue upholstered chair, eyes red-rimmed, clutching her purse like someone might snatch it away. She jumped up the moment she saw me. Autumn. Her voice trembled, a mix of rehearsed lines and real fear. I crossed my arms, standing at a distance, offering no invitation. What do you want? Brielle licked her lips. I know. Things got bad, but I didn't mean to. I never thought you'd bleed out on the operating table while you live-streamed your award? I cut in. Or forge my signature on medical records to keep the party going uninterrupted? Brielle hung her head. You have every right to be angry. I was wrong, I know. But right now, I really need your help. I'm listening. She pulled out a folded piece of paper and spread it on the small coffee table. A payment request from the wedding banquet hall. The amount printed boldly in the center. $60,135.87. The venue demands full payment because I canceled last minute, Brielle explained, voice wavering. Jordan pulled out. Mom can't cover it. Dad is bankrupt, I said for her. She nodded. They're threatening to sue. I have no one else to turn to. Please. I stared at the girl in front of me. Her once elaborately curled blonde hair, now tangled, makeup smudged like a clumsy smear. Part of me still remembered Brielle as the little sister who grabbed my hand after a bike fall, who cried, scared of the dark. But that part had been worn away by invisible cuts over the years. When you were unconscious in the ICU, I said slowly, where were you? I was at the gala. I didn't think. I was clinically dead for 78 seconds, I continued, voice darkening. No one called, no one came in. Do you know who kept me alive? A colleague, not family. Brielle burst into tears. I'm not here to watch you perform another scene, I said. You don't need to play the victim anymore. You've been the media darling, mom's golden child, the star of every photo. Now it's my turn. I pulled out my phone and opened the voice recorder app. I'm not helping you pay your debts, I said, but I'm giving you something more valuable, a chance for people to see who you really are. Autumn, don't do this. I didn't answer. I quietly opened the file named Voice Memo 2010, the recording Gavin sent me, in which my mother confessed I was an unwanted result of a wrongful relationship, that they kept me only to save their reputation. Brielle panicked. No, you can't play that. It's family. It's private. I begged to be part of that so-called family, I said, voice low. Now I'll let the world judge what that family really is. That same afternoon, I posted the recording on my personal blog, the site I started in college to share financial advice with struggling students. I hadn't updated much in recent years, but still had loyal readers. I gave it a simple title, When Your Family Uses Their Reputation to Hide Cruelty. I didn't name names, nor attach images, but the content left no doubt. I wrote about being used as a tool for saving face, the trust fund violated, my body collapsing while loved ones smiled on stage. I embedded the raw audio. No edits, no background music. The post was shared over 1 million times in less than 48 hours. The blog crashed, emails kept notifying. New post received 5,000 visits. A week later, a journalist emailed me. She wrote, "I've never read a story that made me want to call my daughter in the middle of the night like this." I read that line over and over, not for fame, but because finally someone understood. That cruelty doesn't always scream. Sometimes it stands silently behind the spotlight with a camera and a fake smile. And I don't regret it. I did nothing but give back what they planted in me. With perfect silence, perfect indifference, and at the exact moment they hoped I'd stay quiet. That morning, I poured myself a cup of coffee when Emery walked into the office, her gaze unusual. She didn't speak at first, just placed a thick file in front of me, its cover stamped with the Memorial Hospital logo, the place I had stayed after surgery. "This came from the medical administration," Emery said, her voice harder than usual. I set my coffee cup down, opened the file, and my eyes quickly scanned the titles. Medical Power of Attorney Renewal Form. Authorization to act on behalf of patient. Consent for financial liability extension. Each page was part of an emergency dossier submitted less than a week after I left the bat. Hospital. Filers Richard Lowe and Catherine Lowe. Reason for request. Daughter has lost full cognitive capacity during treatment and has a history of psychological instability requiring ongoing management after discharge. I gripped the file tightly. "Psychological instability?" I gasped, feeling my throat tighten. "This is what I think you need to prepare for," Emery said. "They're trying to keep long-term medical power of attorney, and not just that." She opened her laptop, flipped to a mortgage contract with Landmark Mutual Bank. Bold text read, "Co-signed by Autumn Lowe. Legal representative, Catherine Lowe. Parental proxy." Collateral. A piece of land on the outskirts of Round Rock in my father's name, now classified by the bank as foreclosure. "No way." I whispered. "I never knew about any property like that." "You didn't sign, but there's an electronic signature matching the previously forged medical record," Emery said. "They use that medical power of attorney as an excuse to sign everything related to finances for you. And now, when bad debts can't be reversed, they plan to use you as a shield. Like a living life insurance policy," I said bitterly. I jumped up from the chair and walked to the office's large window, taking a deep breath to calm myself. Below, cars still moved, people still went to work carrying the usual worries of life. But I was standing in a game I never agreed to play with people I once called family. I turned back, voice steady. "They don't just want money, they want full control over my life, like I'm a possession." "Exactly," Emery replied. "And if you don't respond quickly, they'll have enough legal grounds to force you to shoulder their debts." "What about lawyer Margaret?" I asked. "Does she know?" "She's seen the entire file and is preparing counterclaims of legal fraud, signature forgery, and intentionally falsifying documents for personal gain." That very afternoon, I went to Margaret's office. On her desk lay a pile of files organized into separate groups. Each group was evidence: signature comparisons, hospital system login data, and a detailed log matching my anesthesia time against the electronic signature time. "We'll send all this to Travis County District Court," Margaret said. "Also, I'm drafting an emergency petition to invalidate all documents they use to represent you." I nodded, hands clasped, chest heavy as if weighed down by a stone. "Legally, they're trying to legitimize their theft by hiding behind family," Margaret continued. but we have enough proof to show it's all fabricated and intentional from the start. I looked her straight in the eye without blinking. I want them to have no loopholes, no escape routes. I want it all to end. Then I need you to sign here, Margaret said, pushing the counterclaim documents toward me. I took the pen, looking at the bolded heading, Declaration of Fraud and Proxy Abuse. The words sounded cold, legal, but to me, it was a declaration of survival. I was no longer anyone's property. I was myself. I signed. No trembling, no hesitation. When I left the lawyer's office, my phone lit up with a new message. Honey, Dad needs to talk urgently. The family is in crisis. Don't let this go too far. Mom is very worried. We're still a family, right? I didn't open the message. I didn't need to read the rest to know they were trying to pull me back. I quietly held down the screen and chose block number. Stepping out of the building, I looked up at the Austin sky. The wind was chilly but bright. And at that moment, I knew clearly, if they wanted to play their final move, I would strike first. No longer the shield. No longer the backup child. No longer the last card they hide up their sleeve. I would be the one to flip the whole table. That afternoon, the sky pulled a quiet gray curtain over the street where I grew up. I parked across from the old house. Brown plywood boards nailed across the ground floor windows, the front yard overgrown with weeds, a rusted "no trespassing" sign hanging on the iron gate. The house no longer looked like a home, just a shell of what I once believed family was. I opened the trunk, took out a vintage film camera, heavy but the only thing I wanted to use to shoot the final photo for my 78 seconds exhibition. I gently rotated the lens, adjusting the angle, not from the front, but from the side of the house where I used to hide under the back window every time Mom yelled because Brielle messed up, or I accidentally dropped a glass in the kitchen. The sound of a car engine came from behind. I didn't need to turn to know who it was. The scent of Chanel No. 5 floated on the breeze before I heard the click of high heels on the stone pathway. Then her voice, soft and high, like she was performing in a tired stage play. Autumn, I knew you'd come here. I didn't turn around, still focused on adjusting the light through the viewfinder. I stood here hundreds of times, she continued. When you were little, every Friday afternoon when you came home from the library, I waited by the second-floor window. Do you remember? I put the camera down, turned around. Mom stood there, wearing a beige silk dress, hair pinned up, face lightly made up, but her eyes red and deep, like she hadn't slept in many nights. I remember, I replied. I remember you watching me come home with a perfect test score, then going straight to Brielle's room because she just broke your vase. She was silent. Her eyes wandered. From behind the car, a hoarse voice broke in, choked by tears. Autumn. Brielle stepped out, still clutching an old purse. She was no longer the radiant girl from those Instagram photos. Her face was gaunt, makeup smudged, her high heels scuffed from dust on the road. I saw in her eyes no pride left, only an emptiness very much like the one I'd carried for years. You're not here to mock me, are you? She asked, voice trembling. I know I was wrong, but it's too late now. I just want to ask for forgiveness. I looked at both of them, the mother who turned me into a failed investment, and the sister who got used to climbing the ladder of fame on my back. They stood on cracked concrete. Behind them, the house that was once my dream, now just a musty memory. I'm not here to forgive, I said, voice low but clear. I'm here to capture the truth. Brielle stepped forward. We've fallen apart, Autumn. Mom sold all the jewelry. Dad won't leave the house because of debts. They told me to call you. They said if you have any blood left, you'll save the family. Family? I repeated. I died in the arms of silence. While I was on the operating table, you posted celebration photos. When I opened my eyes, the first thing I got was a request for money transfer. I stepped closer, stopping 2 paces away, just the distance I used to stand between them, but never close enough to be embraced. 78 seconds without a heartbeat. Do you know that? No. Because you were busy living the lives you assigned me, the debtor, the check writer, the one with no right to complain. My mother's tears fell for real. She reached out, but I stepped back. Don't. Your hand once caught Brielle when she stumbled, once stroked her hair when she cried. But with me, you only touched me to fix my pose in family photos. Autumn, I never thought it would come to this. I was wrong. No, I replied calmly. You weren't wrong once. You chose wrong my whole life. And now, I choose again. I turned, raised my camera, aimed the lens at them. 2 people standing before the foreclosed house, the afternoon light casting long shadows on the withered lawn, a perfect frame for the last photo. Brielle lowered her voice, clutching the last piece of the game. You won't post this photo, right? Please don't. I can't take it anymore. I glanced through the viewfinder, focused, no answer. Then I lowered the camera. Looking into my sister's eyes, I spoke softly, but each word clear. I am no longer your child, nor the shadow of anyone in these photos. I turned and walked out of the yard. Each step away from that house was a chain falling from my shoulders, each ring a soft echo in the wind, a farewell. I didn't look back, didn't need to. I had taken the photo I needed. More importantly, I had seen them one last time through the lens, as true as they really were. No lights, no stage. Just 2 people standing amid the ruins of what they created. I stood behind the black velvet curtain at the back of the room, silently watching guests enter the 78 Seconds exhibition in the heart of New York, a minimalist white space, still as a winter lake. Along the clean walls stretched large framed photos, each with a short caption. Not a flowery narrative, but the raw truth of the years I lived. No, the years I endured. The first photo, taken of the hospital bed where I woke after surgery, a white blanket soaked in darkness, next to a heart rate monitor, a small detail, but to me, the only witness to the moment my heart stopped. The second showed an empty dining table amid a family party, with everyone laughing behind, but the chair where I sat had been pushed out. Then came photos of documents, fake authorizations, forged signatures, and finally, a recording of my mother admitting she kept me for appearances. Each step I took in that space was like looking back at myself behind the camera. I wasn't on stage demanding recognition. I was just telling my story, with light, with composition, with memory. Visitors didn't whisper or chatter like at typical exhibits. They moved slowly, sometimes lingering long before a frame, then leaving with thoughtful expressions. An older woman stood before the last photo for a long time. It showed my mother and Brielle standing in front of the foreclosed house, their eyes turned away from the camera. I had clearly stood apart from them in space, and in essence, the woman turned to her companion, quietly saying, "Maybe she doesn't need revenge, she just needs to be seen, to be known that she existed." I stood still, didn't step out. I didn't need an introduction, didn't need anyone to recognize me. Each person left that room carrying something with them, like I once left every family gathering, but this time, I was the one leaving a mark. Emery came beside me, silently placing a hand on my back. She wore a simple, long gray dress, no jewelry, but steady enough to be a support. "They're here," she whispered. I didn't ask who. I stepped halfway out from behind the curtain, just enough to see 2 shadows near the photo capturing the gala dinner table from the night I almost died. Mom stood straight, but her shoulders were no longer proud. Brielle, beside her, clutching her purse strapped tightly, eyes scanning the room like looking for a place to hide. They stopped for a long time before the photo titled Final Declaration. There, I stood in a courtroom meeting room, holding civil suit documents, with lawyers and bank representatives behind me. No expression, no presentation needed, just a woman who decided to represent no one but herself. My mother turned to Brielle, whispered something softly. She nodded, still not daring to look up again. Then both turned their backs, silently walking toward the exit. No one stopped before the photo of the emergency room door. No one glanced at the letter I wrote to myself at 18, a letter never sent because I never believed I deserved dreams. They left nothing behind, no words, no traces, just as they had passed through my life. Emery held my hand. "Are you okay?" I squeezed her hand gently. "I'm fine. I used to think when they came I'd feel pain. But actually," I turned to the last row of photos. An empty room, a cracked mirror, an open window looking out at the New York dusk, all without people, but full of freedom. I feel light, like I finally removed a name from my heart. Emery smiled. "Because you're no longer the person they called," I nodded. "I'm not the one responsible anymore. I am me. And from now on, that's enough." We stepped deep into the final gallery of the exhibit, not to oversee, not to prove anything, just to stand among the evidence of a life once covered in dust. And I, the one who wiped away every layer with my own hands. What do you think when a woman has to die for 78 seconds before truly living for herself? When a lifetime of silence is replaced by the voice of truth, though late, though painful, but full of freedom? If you've ever spent years living just to please others, been seen as a pillar with no one asking if you were tired, do you see yourself somewhere in this story? Please share your thoughts below. I really want to know, if it were you, what would you do differently? Would you choose forgiveness or letting go? And if you find stories like this worth listening to, quiet slices of life in seemingly perfect homes, please follow the channel to join us on the next journeys. Stories that might make you realize sometimes family isn't where you're born, but where you're brave enough to begin again.